Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Leandra the TBR0 and I was tagged in the A to Z book tag challenge by Nicole over at Dusty Book Sniffers. If you do not know who that is, if you aren't already subscribed to her, I have linked her channel below. I've also linked her A to Z book tag video below because we need to remedy this situation. If you know who I am, if you've subscribed to me and you aren't subscribed to Nicole yet, what is going on? So please feel free to pause the video, fix that, and then return to mine. On that note, if you're new here, if you've been here before and you haven't subscribed, this is your reminder to do so. I just reached 350 subscribers. I'm so grateful. I can't wait to see what else is in store for me on Booktube. With that said, if you're not comfortable doing that just yet, liking the video, commenting is also very much appreciated. The way this tag is going to work, apparently there's a prompt that is associated with every single letter of the alphabet. I need to let you all know now that I have not prepared anything. I have no idea what's in store. I have not planned any answers, so we're going to do this on the fly, and I apologize in advance. The first prompt A, is an author you've read the most books of. That is pretty much an obvious answer. It's Agatha Christie. I've read about a third of her collection, which is approximately a dozen, maybe 15 books, and as I said, that's only a third of her collection. I have an entire shelf dedicated to her behind me. You can see I've got a little Miss Marple and a little Poirot behind me, so obviously I'm a big Christie fan. I really enjoy her plotted mysteries. She has a great handle on Golden Age specific tropes, and I can't recommend her enough. The one thing I'll say is if you're interested in checking her out, start with her earlier work. Her later work receives a lot of criticisms for good reason. There's also a lot of really interesting side detectives that you don't hear much about. Tommy and Tuppence, they're a young sleuthing couple. We've got Parker Pyne, who focuses on investigating different mysteries in the hope of providing his clients with happiness as their main priority, and just all these other characters. So yeah, like, don't just focus on Poirot and Miss Marple, especially if they're not the characters that immediately call to you. I also just had an Agatha Christie book haul of all of these black Bantam edition copies, so if you're interested in that, I'll make sure to link that below. Prompt B is best sequel ever. That is a really hard one to answer, especially because I'm not really a series reader. Even when it comes to mysteries, if it's a series, it doesn't really matter how you read it and what kind of order, but this past year I did read this amazing sequel, and it is called One Girl in Every Generation. Is that what it's called? No, it's not. One Girl in All the World. It's by Kendara Blake. I promise I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. This is in Every Generation series. It follows basically a Buffy the Vampire Slayer 2.0, Frankie Rosenberg. The reason why the sequel was just so good was because it allowed the protagonist, Frankie, to shine in such a great way. In our first book, we ended up getting all of the characters. All of them were brand new to us for obvious reasons. And so I felt as though the narrative focus was divvied up amongst them, whereas Frankie ended up kind of being our star, as was well deserved in the second book, and it just made me love her so much, and I could totally see myself returning to that series over and over again, especially that particular book. And that's the book that finally sparked me to try Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original TV show, because I'd never seen it before. My own experience was with Angel, the spinoff, and yeah, it was awesome. Prompt C is currently reading. I'm not currently reading anything. All right, I'm a bad booktuber. We're going to accept that. However, I did just go pull a couple books that I plan on starting. The problem is I'm recording this during the Amazing Readathon, and I'm kind of waiting for the face-off events to start. It starts like on a Friday and ends on a Sunday, so I didn't really want to start anything that I would then have to put down quickly, but 2 books that I can definitely start soon because they're either short or involve short stories include Golden Age Bibliomysteries. This is edited by Otto Penzler. I got this just this past month in my Mysterious Bookshop subscription service, and I really do need to prioritize this because I've been trying to keep up with the subscription and make sure I read the book without just putting it on my shelf and forgetting about it. So this is going to be awesome. It's going to also allow me to kind of pick it up whenever I want, so I don't know why I'm hesitating. It's probably going to include 1930s, 1940s detectives, especially because this is a Golden Age focus, but for American authors. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. And then I'm returning to Ellen Raskin. This is one of my favorite authors as far as the Westing game goes. It's the only book I ever read by her, but it's one of the ones that really got me interested in mysteries. It is middle grade, and this particular title is The Tattooed Potato and Other Clues. I'm really excited. It's very short as well, so like I probably could read it in a day. Prompt D is drink of choice while reading. Well, obviously that is coffee. It is also my drink of choice while recording. I also enjoy tea. I'm partial to an Earl Grey, or even better, a Lady Grey. But really it's gonna be coffee, especially because I like coffee that's caffeinated. I also like coffee that's decaffeinated. So really any time of the day, especially if I'm reading or doing something that is literary in nature, I will be having a cup of joe with me. Prompt E is e-reader or physical book. Obviously, I'm a physical book gal. With that said, I did just get a Kindle this past winter, and I have used it a handful of times. The main reason why I ended up investing in one was because I predominantly get NetGalley e-ARCs. A couple publishers send me physical ARCs, which I'm so grateful for, but because I have e-ARCs available to me, I didn't really want to read them on the computer or on my phone anymore. I also have Libby, this library app that allows you to have ebooks, and they even send them to your Kindle or any other e-reading device, which I really appreciate. And so while I own a Kindle, I still see myself always picking up physical books. And if I'm not, I'm more likely to pick up an audiobook than I am an ebook. Prompt F, fictional character you probably would have actually dated in high school. I probably wouldn't have dated anybody in high school because I didn't date anyone in high school. I do think that there's a difference between who I myself as an adult would have chosen for my teenage self versus what my teenage self would have thought I wanted. To bring back One Girl in All the World, I probably would have wanted as a teenager Grimm, the main character in that one, and obviously he's a bad boy. He is like a 1,000-year-old demon, but my adult self would actually have chosen another character that is in a series that I really love, and that's Emmerich. He is a part of the Little Thieves series, and he's just this nerdy, adventurous boy, and I could totally see my teenage self being more comfortable with him and very much throwing away her delusion that Grimlock would be the choice for her. Prompt G, glad you gave this book a chance. Oh, that's a good one. I think the one that is the most recent that I can think of was actually Deadline at Dawn by Cornell Woolrich. I read that a few months ago, and that is a hard-boiled American mystery. That's a subgenre that I usually try to avoid like the plague because of how often it's associated with misogynistic, sexist, racist viewpoints, and it's usually very unapologetically right there on the page, very blunt and oversaturated in that type of content. I don't even know if oversaturated is really the right term for it, just saturated to the extent that is just horrible. So I really was nervous entering this book, and it actually was also a part of my Pensler Classics. So I was kind of like, well, I paid for it. It's a part of my subscription, so I should try it. And I'm so glad I did. I really loved that one. What I was most impressed by was that we had two young sleuths, but the one who was the dominant leader was actually Bricky, the young woman, and she was the one who was guiding the more sensitive young man. What was his name? It doesn't matter. So I was really surprised. I was really glad I tried that, and now I want to try Cornell Woolrich again, because the thing is I could totally see myself rereading Deadline at Dawn and actually even teaching it. I feel like that would be a really cool book to teach in a classroom. It also has this really great plot that like goes over the course of one night, like 5 hours, which is just really fascinating to me. Prompt H, hidden gem book. I know exactly which title I'm going to mention, and it's actually thanks to Nicole and her book club that this book is getting a wider audience. It is Claudia Gray's The Murder of Mr. Wickham. It's the first book in this new Jane Austen murder mystery series. The actual series name, I believe, is called Juliet Tilney and Jonathan Darcy series. They're the two young sleuths that are like obviously solving the crime, and it's the murder of Mr. Wickham that we're following. He is the, I guess, antagonist, the villain in Pride and Prejudice, and I really enjoyed that particular historical mystery. It brings all of our main hard-hitting characters from the Jane Austen canon, and they're brought into one house for this one house party, and then when obviously Mr. Wickham dies, you have to look around and figure out which Jane Austen character is capable of murder. It's so fun. Not enough people talk about it, and honestly, like, I'm so glad that Nicole's book club is reading it because it's so good. Prompt I, important moment in your reading life. I think starting my Bookstagram actually was really important because it ended up encouraging me to read more, to discuss openly the books I was reading more, reaching out to other people who are avid readers, because while I have some friends who like to read, I don't have any close friends who read as much as me, who are as obsessed with books as me, and because of my Bookstagram, that ended up gaining me access to a few other people who I've become friends with, who I've known for years at this point, and then that led me to finally making the jump to starting a Booktube, and now I have way more friends who are avid readers, and now I'm doing buddy reads with people like Danny at Danny Dabbles, or doing reading sprints events with Brittany over at Brittany Loves Reading for Ice Planet Barbarians, and it's been a really great kind of, I don't know, experience making friends that also like to read, and I really appreciate this community. And so I do think that the catalyst was Bookstagram that eventually led me to have enough confidence to try a Booktube channel. So yeah, it's honestly been such a great last few years, all thanks to that. Prompt J, just finished. I actually just finished this middle grade book. It was the third in a trilogy. It's called The Grim Conclusion. The first two books are A Tale Dark and Grim, which actually became a Netflix original series, and it's really fun. I really liked it. And that is what introduced me to this book series in general. And then the second book is, I think, In a Glass Grimly. All three of these books pull and kind of rearrange our ideas of fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel, Cinderella, and it's really fun. The author likes to break the fourth wall a lot and address the reader as if they are telling a story and pausing and saying, now, reader, prepare yourself. There's going to be a lot of violence, or just to let you know, these kids are going to make the wrong decision, and then kind of falling back into the narrative. And so it's been a really fun series to read, and I read the first two books back in 2021. I've had the third book on my shelf since then, and then I finally read it thanks to the Amazing Readathon. So thanks, Brie, for getting me to finally read that book, because it's a red cover, and I was team red. So I just finished that, and it was really satisfying to kind of finish the book that way, or at least finish the series that way, especially because in this third book, the author brought back favorite characters from the first and second books. And so it was really meta, it was really interesting. And yeah, I recommend it if you like fairy tale retellings and if you like middle grade reads. Prompt K, kinds of books you won't read. What books won't I read? I don't think that there's really any books that I am hard pressed to ignore for life, but books that I'm far less tempted to pick up include classics that aren't classic mysteries. So very much the literary books. You can see them right here. I've got quite a few. Oliver Twist. We've got 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The main reason why they're sitting over here is probably because it means I'm not really going to be reading them anytime soon. And so that's kind of the criteria for why books are to the side of my shelves, rather than me showcasing them very beautifully on the shelves themselves. So I think classics are really hard for me to pick up voluntarily. And that's just because the language tends to be archaic, outdated. Linguistically, the syntax is different, so it takes me a lot longer to process information. And I always get really kind of pulled out of a book, especially when old views come in, like prejudice, racism, classism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, any of those types of things. I really struggle to like be okay with reading. So yeah, I think that's the easiest answer. Prompt L, longest book you've read. That definitely has to be The Stand by Stephen King. I read the uncut version, which is something like 1,200 plus pages or something like that. And it was the first fictional Stephen King that I ever read. The reason why I say fictional is because I was assigned his memoir in high school for some reason. I don't really remember why, but one of our high school teachers had us read that. So that was my introduction to him. And then a bookseller, I asked them when I arrived at the store saying, hey, I want to try Stephen King. This is what I've read. Can you recommend one of his fictional books to me? And they recommended The Stand. And so I just borrowed it. That would be theft. I actually bought it at the bookseller and I read it. It took me 6 months to read, actually. This was before I was like a big reader, and I really did enjoy it. I don't know what I would think of it if I read it now, but because it's so long, I probably will never read it again. Prompt M, major book hangover because of, I don't really know if I get book hangovers very often. One that put me through an emotional ringer, particularly because of how it ended, which of course is like the most potent time to affect someone emotionally, is Something New Under the Sun by Alexandra Kleeman. To be honest, that's another hidden gem book that no one talks about, and it's honestly one of my favorites of all time. That and maybe Appleseed by Matt Bell. I'm giving 2 answers. What are you gonna do about it? Both of those books were just so powerful emotionally, and so much was happening. Both of them are actually climate fiction books, which is really fascinating when I'm thinking about my answers for this particular prompt. But Something New Under the Sun just was heart-wrenching at the end. There was a certain moment that really broke my heart. I actually had an opportunity to speak with the author about it, and I told her that it made me like weep, and she said that as she was writing that scene, she also was crying, and it just totally made sense to me. I totally believed her, because of course it did. So that was honestly one of my favorite moments of my life so far, was being able to know that about that author. Also with Appleseed, that one was just an epic journey. 3 different timelines. The book is like this long. I don't have it with me, or I would actually pause my recording to go get it, because I was telling my dad about it, who is growing into a big reader as well, and he was like, I want to try that, and I was like, okay. And so I gave it to him the last time I visited home, and I'm waiting on him to read it to see what he thinks about it before I can return it to its rightful place at my library, my personal library. Prompt N, number of bookcases you own. Well, technically, I have 2 bookcases that function as bookcases. I've got the one behind me, and then I have this small one that I am partly using as a bookcase, but also because for some reason my bed is also very tall, I'm making it act as a nightstand because it's perfectly leveled. But I also have a few pieces of furniture that weren't designed to be bookcases that I am pretending to be bookcases. Like I have this dresser that is off screen. To the left of me, I also have my closet of sorts. It's like a skeletal closet because I live in a studio apartment, so I had to bring this in to give me a place to put my clothing. And the top 2 shelves of every single kind of unit, I am supposed to put sweaters and stuff on. I haven't. I have books there. I definitely don't have enough bookcases for the number of books I own, and I'm hesitant to actually buy more bookcases just because I already have such a small space. And on top of that, I would rather get through my physical TBR more to see if there are some books I don't actually want to keep before I then like spend money and have this huge bookcase that I can't even fill, because then it's perpetuating the problem of like materialism, of me wanting to buy books that I might not know if I love it or not, and we don't need to get into it. Prompt O, one book you have read multiple times. I'm not a big reader. I want to be. Every once in a while, you'll hear me say on this channel that I really want to be a rereader, but I can't get behind the idea that I have so many books I haven't read yet, especially ones that I own, to then waste time. It's not wasting time, but in my mind, that's how I'm categorizing it, on rereading a book compared to starting a new one. I did go through this one phase with this one book where I read it 3 times. It became a tradition that I would reread it on my birthday, or at least during my birthday month of September. So, I mean, next month, am I going to reread this book? I don't know. But I have kind of been wondering if I want to, because it's been a few years at this point. But it's called Orion, You Came and You Took All My Marbles. It's by Kira Henahan, and honestly, it is so fun. It is very much a quasi-mystery, surreal, plus abstract ideas. I don't really know how to describe it, but this main character, Finley, she has memory loss. She's a part of this weird private eye investigation services, and she is assigned this case of this man who's a puppeteer, and there's something going on with his puppets. Does she have any idea what's going on with them? No, but apparently she's got to investigate it, and it's just super absurd. Like, if you're really into absurdist stuff that's really humorous, that has a lot of fun wordplay, that just kind of sprinkles in like mystery tropes, I highly recommend. It's hard-boiled, but like on crack. Prompt P, preferred place to read. I once in a while will go to like a cafe and just enjoy that type of experience, but I found, especially this year, that I actually just like being home. I really like specifically being home, not being out and about reading, and I will switch up my location within my home. Sometimes I'll just be like a bed bug and just, oh, that's disgusting, I'm so sorry. What is the term? There's couch potato, and then there's, we don't have a bed slug, I don't know, but I like to curl up in my bed. I also will have a tendency to switch up my reading kind of location and cozy up on my couch and there, be a couch potato. But really, those are like the only two places that I kind of find myself cozying up for multiple hours. Prompt Q, a quote that inspires you, gives you all the feels from a book. I'm really bad about that. I think it's because I read too many books, and because I don't reread very often, that I actually like can think of quotes that are that impactful to me. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pass on that. But if I think of it, I'll do a freeze frame and I'll provide a quote that way. Reading regret. I suppose this could be interpreted differently depending on the type of person you are. It could be a regret about a book that you just wish you had never read. It could also be a regret that you have about a choice you made as far as your reading life goes. For me, I suppose I'll say that I wish I had accessed my library sooner than I did. I ended up not really attending the library when I was a child. I remember I would go to certain events, but I wasn't really a big reader as a kid. And then when I moved into my adulthood, I often thought that buying books was the like only real way to really enjoy and become a reader, which honestly, I guess it's not even a very good regret, because it's more so a critique on society and how we don't provide people with access to the information, resources, knowledge that they should just be guaranteed. The number of people who still nowadays don't access their library, not just for books, but for all of the various free programs and free resources that the library provides, it is baffling that we like aren't promoting it enough. So for me, my own journey was that when I first moved here to this town that I live in now, and for my master's, I finally started using the library periodically, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of great. And then I started working at the library, and now that's why you see me churning out more library books than I do anything else every month. So even though I'm trying to lower my physical TBR as much as possible, every month consistently, the acquisition, I guess, format that I have the highest of is library books. So I guess that's just one regret that I'll willingly put on my shoulders that is definitely like more so like to blame society on. Prompt S, series you started and need to finish. All books are out in the series. What? This is really bad because I don't know about the series that are still out. Okay, let's go with the easiest answers that I can think of immediately. So I read Hunt the Stars last month, and that is the first in the Starlight's Shadow trilogy. So I could totally finish that. I actually own books 2 and 3 as well, because I went out and bought the second book, and I was gifted by the publisher the third book. So that's definitely possible. I also am currently in the middle of the Broken Earth trilogy series. So I read books 1 and 2, only have the third one left. I also, this is one that I own the third and final book in the Brightstorm series. So it goes Brightstorm, Dark Whispers, and then Fire Song. I own Fire Song, and that's the only one I haven't read yet, so there's that. And then finally, another really easy one to mention is Agatha Christie. So I have read probably at least one book across the various series that she's written, but I certainly haven't read all of Poirot, I haven't read all of Marple, I haven't read all of Tommy and Tuppence. I've been meaning to, of course, but that's definitely a much longer kind of project that I in no way will be completing like soon. Prompt T. 3 of your all-time favorite books. Are you kidding me? How am I going to do that on the top of my head? How dare you? And by you, I mean me, because it's my fault that I didn't prepare for this video. I'm going to have to mention books that I've already discussed in this video because they're really fresh in my head, and honestly, more people need to read them. Appleseed by Matt Bell, Something New Under the Sun by Alexandra Kleeman, and then, just for fun, because I did thoroughly enjoy this particular Agatha Christie, I'm gonna say The Mysterious Affair at Styles. It's the first book in her canon, and I really love it. I think it's like a nostalgic kind of like fun type of book to mention. So naturally, like if I had to choose one by her, I'm gonna choose that one. Prompt U. Unapologetic fangirl for. I don't really know if I'm a huge fangirl for any type of book or book series. I suppose that one that I have been promoting a lot recently is actually the Little Thieves series. This past summer, I read Little Thieves and then the second installment, Painted Devils, and those are each 500 pages. I was totally enamored. I was in that world like till death do us part. So I have to say that I'm very much a fangirl of it, especially because it's this YA fairy tale retelling that includes demisexual ace representation, and you just don't see that very often, so I really do appreciate it. And I also love that Vanya is through and through a gray character to the definition that I have selected as a gray character. I have a critique on how often characters are described as gray when in reality they're just bad characters. They're not good people, but we accept them. That doesn't make them gray. That just means they're bad. So I think Vanya is one of those few that are really great examples of gray characters. Prompt V. Very excited for this release more than all the others. I am upset because I can't remember what this book is actually called, but it is the third installment in the Bone Spindle series. It's by Leslie Vedder. This is yet another YA fairy tale retelling. It also has great queer representation. It has this really strong friendship between two young women that I honestly care about more than anything else. I don't even really care about the romantic relationships in this book, but specifically the two girls who have become like each other's ride or die is my favorite element. Shane has become one of my favorite characters of all time, genuinely. And so I would have to say that I'm really excited for that specific release. And I want to say it comes out January or February of 2024. So I still have quite a few months to wait for it. Prompt W. Oh my gosh, we're so close to being done. Worst bookish habit. What would be my worst bookish habit? I think it might be the fact that I'm just perfect. No, I think one bookish habit that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's something I've become aware of and I am trying to even it out a bit, and that's I tend to read one book by an author and then it takes me so long to return to that author that I almost treat authors like one-hit wonders. It's really more an exception to the rule when I read multiple books by an author, and it's something I'm trying to fix. I want to read more books by authors that I've already read before so that I can kind of get to know their canon a little bit more rather than just saying, oh, I read that one book by them, and then not be able to contribute anything else to the conversation. So that isn't necessarily a bad habit, but it's something that went on for so long I didn't even realize I was doing it until I started kind of keeping track of that statistic, and I was like, whoa, Leandra. And it's not really making anything better. I think in my mid-year check-in video, which I'll link below, where I was talking about my stats, specifically with my bullet journal, because that's where I keep all of my stats, it was something like I'd read 50 books from January to the end of June, and I think it was something like 30 something books were by new to me authors, like 35 or something. So like clearly I mostly just try new authors, which isn't a bad thing. It's just like when I'm trying to get to my physical TBR and a lot of my physical TBR involves repeat authors, I'm kind of like, we're seeing a trend here. Oh my god, I'm so close to the end. Okay. Prompt X. X marks the spot. Start at the top left of your shelf and pick the 27th book. Oh, okay, I'll be back. Okay, so rather than do the shelves behind me, because those are my to be read shelves, I went over to my have read shelves and pulled up Viviana Valentine Gets Her Man by Emily J. Edwards. I actually just read this book this summer. It's a new addition to my library. I borrowed the audiobook through Hoopla, if I'm remembering correctly, and I had so much fun with it that I decided to add it to my collection, and I've read book 2 since then, gave that 5 stars as well, and I am just waiting for the paperback to come out because that's a really recent publication, and I want to make sure that they all have the same edition. It doesn't make sense for me to start off with the paperback and then go ahead and buy the hardback edition. Anyway, yeah, this one I can't recommend enough. Historical mystery. Follows this really spunky main character sleuth, Viviana Valentine, 1950s New York City, and this is totally perfect for fans of the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or A Girl Friday, that particular like classic movie, His Girl Friday. Highly recommend. 2 more! We've got 2 more. Prompt Y, your latest book purchase. That was actually an eBay lot. Once in a while, because I work for Shedunnit and I like to find, you know, golden age detective fiction for a bargain, I like to go to eBay. You can find a lot of authors that people don't really realize how valuable they are, how like sparse they are. Craig Rice is one of them. She was this golden age American author from like the 30s and the 40s. I also think she bled into the 50s, and now I almost own all of her books. I'm really excited about it. One example that was in that lot is actually The Right Murder. I am so excited for this one. I will be reading it soon because I got the audiobook from Libby as well. Or no, that one was probably from Hoopla. It doesn't really matter. I got it from the library, and this is the 3rd book in, oh no, it's not. It's the 4th book in the John J. Malone series, but it's also kind of like a companion, like a sequel to the book that comes before it. That one's called The Wrong Murder, and then this one is kind of like culminating into, you know, the grand finale of all of the issues that are going on in these 2 books. So I'm really excited about it. And yeah, I had to splurge because you don't see Craig Rice books very often, and these are like the really cool like editions from the 80s. And I just kind of want to collect them all. You can also see the cool cartoony the characters, like the 3 kind of main detectives in it. Yeah, it's awesome. And finally, we've got Prompt Z. It is the ZZZ Snatcher book, the last book that kept you up way late. I'm also not someone who will let a book make her stay up way too late. However, I suppose one that I was really into, that I had so much fun and like honestly couldn't put it down, was Hunt the Stars by Jessie Mihalik. That was such a good book. I'm sure that I did spend a couple late nights just like having fun with it. It's honestly such a great epic space opera that has this awesome space opera romance that goes on, and yeah, it was awesome. Oh my gosh, that's it. We just got through the last prompt. I have completed the A to Z book tag challenge. Thank you, Nicole, for tagging me. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. I hope that this was as coherent as it could be. I probably should have prepared answers ahead of time, but whatever. The past is the past. I made my decisions. Hindsight is 2020. And finally, it's my turn to tag a few Booktube friends. I have 4 people in mind. They include Autumn from Nose in a Book, Nell from Nell Diamond, Danny from Danny Dabbles, and Lauren from Happy Haunts Library. If any 4 of you have already done this tag, I'm so sorry that I tagged you. Maybe it's time to do a refresher, maybe compare your initial answers to how you feel about these prompts now. I really highly recommend that if you're watching this to honestly subscribe to all 4 of these people. They're amazing. They have great content. They've got great book recommendations. And on top of that, even though all 4 of us overlap as far as reading interests go, we each have a different type of dominating genre that we tend to read the most of. And so that's why I think all 4 of them will have very unique answers compared to the ones I gave, which were for the most part mystery focused. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I really appreciate your support, and I really hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!